मेरा नुकसान करवा के टपी मैं तुमको कौन ने बताया है कि
Fans watching the live feed were unable to believe what they had just heard due to the intense hush that ensued. Screenshots, voice notes, and other types of proof that not only implies treachery yet makes it quite evident. Jim still hadn't showed them. However, the mere assertion that he possessed them was sufficient to send shockwaves across the hip-hop scene, and in an effort to uncover any information that would bolster Jim's allegations, individuals started looking for old interviews and life stories online. It was more than just gossip. Instead, there was a mystery with Jim Jones at its center that was being solved in real time. Some people tagged Chrissy in every post they could locate, while others left comments pleading with Cameron to respond. However, nobody of them spoke. Why aren't they saying anything? Asked one admirer. This got real too fast. I feel like we're witnessing a complete movie, and there were no affirmations or denials. If it weren't real, the quiet would have further increased the drama. However, Jim refused to back down, and later that he shared a dark screen with a single line of white text that said, "Loyalty over everything, even love," on his personal Instagram account that evening. Within minutes, admirers began to speculate about what it meant, wondering if this was the beginning of a full-fledged feud between two of the most famous people in hip-hop, or if he was done with Chrissy Cam. Sources behind the scenes. Jim's close friends said he hadn't been getting much sleep and had been pacing, reflecting, and telling his story again. Screenshots of his narrative appeared everywhere once blobs picked it up. The most painful part of the conversations in his head was that he still hadn't properly confronted Chrissy. Someone with knowledge of the circumstances claims that Jim had merely offered hints and whispered analogies in the hopes that she would confess, but she never did. Rather, they kept pretending that everything was a screen-sharing anonymous account. Capture of Chrissy standing a little too close to what appeared to be a private event camera. Although the audio was muffled, it was still possible to hear laughter. After that, there was Cam leaned forward to whisper something to her at that very time. This was typical, which further contributed to his downward spiral. Jim didn't specifically mention the video, but he went live again the next day. His tone was colder, less sentimental, and more concentrated this time. Chrissy's grin persisted for too long, and the enthusiasm between them was indisputable. Within minutes, the video went viral, with fans calling it the Camp Chrissy clip and breaking it down frame by frame. "All I ever desired was the truth," which he articulated coolly, honestly, and without deceit. Everyone knew who he was talking about, so he didn't mention mains. After just 5 minutes, he abruptly halted the romance, leaving followers with more questions than answers. Chrissy stopped moving as she started to pivot under increasing pressure. Live on her most recent postings. Even more damning, she neglected to show up for a public presentation that she had been advertising for weeks. Fans were aware, correct? She continued to post memes and old photos as if nothing had happened, even though it was obvious that she was hiding someone who said, "I know Jim ain't playing Cameron," but if you look closely, some of his captions, like the one that said, "Sometimes silence is the loudest response," started to sound harsh. Saw it as a direct swipe at Jim, suggesting that things were boiling up behind closed doors, but that Cam wasn't willing to add to the drama in public. More insiders started to speaking anonymously. One of them said that Jim and Cam had always been at odds with one another and that this was not the first time that tensions had arisen due to a lack of trust. According to the source, even though they were brothers, and their disagreements were exacerbated by the presence of a woman in the middle. Then, when things couldn't get much messier, Chrissy's close friend claimed to have leaked the conversation she had with Cam via text. The texts had a friendly, flirty tone, even though they weren't explicit. The timing and intensity suggested something more serious, yet nothing pointed to guilt. Jim, on the other hand, posted an enigmatic video to the story that showed him by himself in the city at night, without any music fans or a caption. Jim thought this was a sign that he was distancing himself from everyone. By now, the plot had grown beyond anyone's expectations and was now about trust and betrayal, as well as what happens when private and public lives clash in the most turbulent of circumstances. Manner. It was clear that the harm had been done. Even though fans were divided, with some standing with Jim and others accusing him of exaggeration without proof. Now, there were rumors that Jim was staying with a cousin in Harlem, while others claimed he had temporarily moved out. Nothing was confirmed, although the presence of those fans began creating timelines based on rumors at the time by comparing film from prior years and examining times where Chrissy, just when everyone thought the storm could pass, Jim did something that confirmed everything in a different, pre-recorded interview that aired a few days after the podcast exploded, and Cam had the tiniest exchange. Those who had never given a damn were now totally engrossed in the Dipset drama, handling the narrative as though it were a real-life reality TV show. Loyalty, Jim said with a smile and a shake of his head. The interviewer tried to delve deeper, but Jim remained evasive, so the implication was clear. I used to think it was real, but now I know better. Supporters begin to wonder if Chrissy was just overwhelmed and waiting for the storm to pass, or if her silence was a sign of remorse. She said nothing in the interim. The stillness became the loudest sound in the room, as no stories were posted or appearances were made. Consequently, the internet was not, every hour, fresh on social media. Speculations, tweaks, and memes surfaced, but supporters were genuinely stunned by one specific incident. Audio samples that were leaked allegedly showed Jim. His voice was thick with exhaustion when he spoke on the phone with someone in his close circle. I had the impression that I was the last to hear what he had to say, as though everyone else had anticipated it but me. One line got viral. Admirers. The harm was undeniable. Friendships were strained, and trust was damaged even though the complete truth hadn't been disclosed. Broken, and Jim Jones, a man renowned for his loyalty and strengths, suddenly appeared more vulnerable and human than ever. It was utilized in auto-tune remixes, subtitles, and replies. Fans were taken aback by a startling incident from a recent live podcast, and Jim Jones was clearly upset and unable to control his feelings, as the one question remained unanswered as the city watched and followers scrutinized every word and post. Would Jim ever be able to forgive them, or was this betrayal too profound to be repaired online? Fans gasped as Jim revealed a shocking revelation during an unscripted, raw section, accusing Chrissy of betrayal and hinting at a scandalous evening involving none other than Cameron. One of the most furious outbursts of the year has been sparked by the disclosure. As the podcast episode continues to gain popularity, tensions have been building behind the scenes for weeks. But there is a frenzy of conjecture on social media as followers frantically attempt to put together the truth. Was there a miscommunication? Or is there more to Cameron and Chrissy's relationship than anyone knew? Whispers of secret talks are resurfacing, and emotions are running high in cryptic remarks, leaving everyone curious to see what occurs after that. Jim's remarks reverberate. The entire hip-hop world is currently observing, anticipating, and speculating about the true depth of this narrative. There were no formal declarations or explanations during the tense days that followed, just stillness. Fans created social media during that period of silence. Numerous speculations emerged from threads regarding their individual realities. While some believed Chrissy had been emotionally aloof for months, others claimed Cam had always carried a light for her. Everyone had ideas, but no one knew the solutions, which further fueled the fire that was already roaring. Then things took an unexpected turn. There was a grainy phone footage that was clearly taken without authorization. Off to the side, Cameron and Chrissy are having a private discussion. The body language was too near, intimate, and not romantic. Cam mumbled something, and Chrissy leaned in. The footage was obtained from a recent music video production in which they were both said to be present. Jim noticed it. Naturally, he posted a single say later that evening, as stated by reports that Chrissy's pals attempted to reach her, but her social media accounts were dormant and she was not responding calls. For someone who typically publishes on social media, this was odd, yet unfazed. Cameron posted a number of photos from an earlier trip of himself smiling while admirers flashed jewelry and left cryptic notes. Captions such as "Some stories don't require highlighting the division among left-leaning followers." Was this just a coincidence, or were they being diverted by his trolling? In any event, the suspicion that Jim's previously close-knit and loyal inner group was unraveling behind closed doors was only reinforced by his failure to refute or defend, with some discreetly attempting to convince Jim's longtime friend on a blog
anche la mia senza base, era tanto per la via di base. La base era tanto per la via di base.
Facciamo. Kan, ada dulu kan. Itu ketemu. Apa ini? Pada kita kasih berbentuk ini.